Hey, what's up, family? This is your boy, Robert Marshall. We're here talking about what it means to believe like a man. You know, growing up in church, it was, kind of superficial, I would say sometimes. You would have the question, somebody asks you, hey, how you doing? You say, I'm good. I'm blessed and highly favored. I'm straight. I'm good, right? When reality, that oftentimes was farthest from the truth. And I think we as society, and I think sometimes men, we live in that space where everything has to be okay. Everything has to be together. Everything has to be controlled. We have to be able to be in control the narrative, because that's what men do, right? I've come to find out that's actually the opposite from the truth. That most men are imprisoned by expectations of other people who don't even think about them when they leave the room. Often men, we are bullied by our own shame, bullied by our own fear, terrorized by our own anxiety, because we feel like when life doesn't go the way we think it should or the way we plan for it to go, then we feel like we have just totally lost all control, or that we've lost the essence of what it really truly means to be a man. But as I've stated before, my definition of what it means to be a man is to be committed to the process of becoming. And the truth is, being committed to this process sometimes is really ugly, it's really messy, and it's not always clean cut or straightforward. Sometimes there's a journey that happens, and the journey does not look like the finished product. Like this thing about an artist, one of my favorite scriptures is that we are God's workmanship. Whenever I think about that word workmanship, I get an image of a stained glass window. And in that window, there's a whole bunch of, beautiful pieces that's kind of broken glass, that's all colored different, shapes, whatever, but they make this beautiful image. And oftentimes that's like our life. It's made up of all of these intricate, broken pieces that are put together that God uses to make something beautiful. And so I don't want to skip to the Christian narrative where I'm blessed and highly favored. And you may be, and if that's where you at, cool. But most men aren't there. Right. We are somewhere in the middle of who we used to be, who we're not trying to be, who we desire to be, and who we need to be in the present. And so I want to invite you all in this conversation. Once again, I've invited some of my closest friends, my brothers, people that I love and respect, to join me in this conversation about what it really looks like to be a godly man in a real world. Oof. So yeah, man. So I'm excited. Man, I got Ali over here. Ali is an amazing, he's everything. He's just one of those all-around creative brothers who's doing shows around the country, around the world. Then I got my bro over here, Fabian. Y'all see his locks? He twisted up to the guys, man. And then, man, I got my brother over here. What's up, D? You good?
Yes, sir.
Man, we're over here, and so, man. One thing that I love about you brothers, and I'm glad that you're here, because y'all real. Like, you're the real deal. What you see is what you get. And so I'm curious to know, man, how have you all journeyed to where you are now from where you started?
Oof.
Yeah, I know, right? Just jump right in.
Well,
right?
I could say, forgive me, gentlemen, I'm going to just start. For me, I am a national spoken word artist, but that came by way of my trauma. My household was not the one that was the typical. I didn't come with a absentee father, mom single on welfare, and everything. It was the opposite. Like my father was the chief of the vice lords where I grew up. So he was in and out of jail. My mom, drug addict in the streets. So there was a man who moved into our building who was a Marine who cuffed me and showed me different ways of discipline, focus, understanding. And so I started writing under the moniker of Hood Raised. One gave me a hood mentality, the other raised me differently. And because of that, I dealt with, I was 12 years old having a sexual relationship with a 27-year-old woman. I was I was part of the Vice Lords from the neighborhood I was from. Seeing my mom actually indulge in drugs in front of me and my friends. Every trauma that I could name became a poem for me. And it was testimony, it was struggle. And the pros and cons of it is I found my niche, I found my lane where I found my voice. But the journey along the way from being a teenager to my early 20s, that wasn't always used in the right way. Womanizing, the streets, being manipulating situations for my benefit, not understanding what being a man was like. I only saw things that were tangible. I didn't understand faith. I didn't understand focus. I didn't understand discipline. I only knew this is the way to get it. And I had a means to do so. And it was one of those, they say you use your gifts, God gives you gifts to use them right. I used mine in the most terrible way. So it was there, but I didn't understand what I needed to do. And it wasn't until, I want to say 30-ish that I started to understand the power in my voice, the power in my story, and knowing that I wrote it to heal me, but the people in the audience needed to hear the testimony in order to get to where we were supposed to be.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You know, for me,
I'm looking at you now.
I see. I was trying to
Take a cue.
For me, I think this term journey is so important and crucial for me because right now for a trade, what I do for a living is I drive semi-trucks. And so everything about my life has to do with the journey. So when I start out on a load or an assignment, I have to know the destination. And so when I think about the journey in this context of
this is a good setup right here, bro.
Yeah.
Sound like you about to preach.
No, I'm just saying, you know, I mean, because it's really compatible for me because, you know, on the journey, on the road, you don't know what's ahead. So you might have a destination, but there might be detours, there might be hills, there might be valleys and all types of difficulties. And what I've noticed in my life is I've run through a journey. And it's so challenging at times as a man because we don't know what's ahead. And some of us don't know that destination. We don't know that end point. And so for me, I've gone through different struggles. I've gone through different difficulties. I was married. I got divorced. That threw me for a loop. I'm thinking, you know, you're coming into a marriage not planning to get divorced. You're not planning to one day be single again, you know. And so when that revelation hits, boom, you know, it's like, I'm thinking life is over. This is a part of my journey. This is a part of my story. And so it's just so crucial that men understand the journey and understand the destination. So when I started to run into challenges, I started to look at, well, where is my destination? When I was younger, I've always had high aspirations, high desires, high goals. You know, I wanted to do this. I wanted to, you know, I had my father in my life. I had my mother in my life. They were married. And that was my story. There was some difficulties. It wasn't perfect, you know, but I desired to be a family man. I desired to be a husband. I desired to be a father. And so I wanted to move in that situation and be strong and reach these different goals. But life gives you detours. You have, you know, you have difficulties with your personal development. You're fighting spiritual battles, natural battles.
Yes.
You're fighting temptation. You're going through these different attacks or things you've caused on yourself because I've done some things. I've made some mistakes. I've made some bad decisions. I made some bad moves. And so I can keep going on and on, but I just
keep going on and on.
With the journey, there's one thing I want to say about a journey because I drive for a living. And so it's interesting to me. I was coming out of Alabama and there was a lot of hills and turns, and the headlights of a vehicle only give you 250 feet of visual, the ability to see. Everything around me was dark.
Wow.
Everything around me was dark. That's good. But the only way I can get to the destination is if I keep moving.
Yeah. Wow.
So I had to take this 250 feet of space of light that's in front of me and keep moving. And God was telling me, keep moving.
It's a metaphor for manhood and life.
Dude.
Oof.
That's good.
Can you repeat the question? Because they said some really good stuff. I just want to make sure. I should have asked that.
What does your journey look like? Like, what is your story?
Okay. Well, I would just start from the beginning, really. Like I said earlier, just born and raised in Humble Park. Very stereotypical or even statistical Puerto Rican family, drugs, gangs, violence, anger issues, all that stuff. So I grew up around that. We dealt with homelessness just due to my parents' poor decision making. We were just bouncing around from house to house. We lived in an abandoned building at one time during the winter, which was very crazy. Taking cold showers in the city, cold showers, all that stuff, candles to have light, and it was just a really dark situation. Fast forward, we ended up moving into a shelter that New Life Covenant, Pastor Choco had started. Ended up having an opening for us. There was one spot on the south side that ended up closing, and then this one opened up. We moved there, and that's really when my life started to change. My dad completely changed his life, got off of drugs, completely disconnected himself from that old lifestyle. My parents eventually got married. It just 180. And then, I dealt with my own different things and stuff like that. You grew up in the hood, and then growing up in the church, you get two different worlds at the same time.
Can you talk about that? What does that look like?
So what I see at the church is not necessarily what I saw at home. So it's like you got these kids who grow up and I had both my parents. It's just they had a lot of unlearning to do. It was a lot of you can't really talk like this, or you can't be frustrated, angry at your kids for just no reason. It was just a lot of old habits like smoking, drinking, all that, drug use. Like my dad's journey, it was a journey, and I watched it play out. And the benefit was I learned what not to do, really, when I would just pay attention to how my father carried himself prior to church, not even to church, forget that, prior to just having an experience with Jesus Christ.
I hear that.
So that helps reshape my thought process on things.
So I'm curious, how many of you have children?
I do not.
You don't have kids yet?
0 kids.
Oh, wow. I remember the days. Listen, so one of the things is that, who we are and what we've experienced shows up in our daily lives.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how has what you have had to travel through, how has that impacted how you father, how you parent? What is the good? What is some of the goods? I know for me personally, with my children, I had 2 boys and I had 1 girl. And one of the reasons why I even began this journey was because when I had my 2 boys, I realized I would look at them, even though I loved them, I was jealous of them. I became jealous of my children, of my boys. And I knew, I loved them. I would never do nothing wrong to them, but I would look at them and I would be jealous. And there was this hatred that started to develop in my heart, towards my sons. And I was like, something I knew at that point something was wrong. And I realized I was jealous, and I was jealous because they had the father I always wanted, but I knew I would never have. And I was mourning the loss and the realization that at this juncture in my life, I'm no longer just a son. I'm going to be the daddy for forever. So how do I parent? How do I show up? And this even impacts how I even treat my boys specifically at times. And my wife sometimes had to you doing too much, because that then, I was picked on as a kid. I was called soft. I was called, all the stuff. And so I never wanted my kids to come off soft or come out like whatever way. Yeah. And I had to learn, or I had to unlearn, that showing intimacy to my sons does not make them or me weak. I realized that it was natural for boys to want intimacy and healthy intimacy with their father and with the other men in their life who are supposed to speak into their lives and create safe spaces. I ain't had that. So I had to kind of like I find myself getting angry, flying off real quick. You know, if I saw them do something. How that's just me. How has that impacted how you showing up with your children?
When it comes to parenting, okay, I have a backstory that was like, again, it started on the dark side of my decisions. And I'll never speak about my children in a negative light. But I'm a father of seven. I have yes, three. I have 3 sons and 4 daughters by 5 women. 2 of which have passed.
Wow.
So being a single father for a long time, and 2 of my sons deal with mental health issues. So like when it comes to parenting, it's my journey in life. It is something that I stand strong in now. The dark side, the bad part, I would say, was I grew up. That's the way my family structure was built. Like there was always a manly presence. We were a family of fathers. Everybody had multiple kids and multiple baby mamas. That was the structure. That's how it was. The womanizing element of it. But you saw all of our kids right next to us. It wasn't absentee father was not part of our journey. But it was kind of regular to have 5 kids by 3 different women, but the 5 kids were with us all the time. That was our structure. I didn't realize the importance of it, how important my presence was until my son was diagnosed with autism. He was 2 at the time, and seeing how different life, I had to understand how different life was going to be for him. This is my oldest. This is my namesake. This is my legacy. But to see that at 2, he can count to 1,000, but he can't walk. To know the struggles that's about to happen, it made me say, wait, whoa, this is my responsibility. So I've always been a hands-on, hey, what's going on? Where's my son? Where's my daughter? What's happening? Like I've always been that, which makes me work so hard. But again, that's something I feel like I pick up from my father. So that again, we made some bad choices, but parenting wasn't one of them.
Right.
It was, hey, we here. My father was big on showing hugs. My father, and again, he was a Marine. He was our discipline, we was running in place in house. You know what I mean? We held books. We had to read a 30-minute comic book after we did our homework. So structure, discipline, focus, those things were imperative, as well as, hey, got good grades on the report card? Come here, son. Oh, I received that. So I paid that forward with my kids, and my kids like that now. My oldest daughter is 27 and with 2 kids and married, but she still is a daddy's girl.
That's love.
Yeah. So parenting is still my journey. I love it. Every day. I hate not talking to my children. Hey, where you at? What's going on? To a married woman. You know, yeah.
That's good.
So the blended. So now we got the multiple. And let's even talk about parenting. Let's add this other element, right? You mentioned where you have the baby father, the baby mama kind of narrative, or the co-parenting narrative. Like, how do you navigate that? Yeah, man, I'm talking to you. Once again, I'm setting you up, bro. I'm setting you up.
No, you know what? That's not an easy. Yeah, let me say la, husa, all that good stuff. Speak in tongues real quick. No, look, it depends on the other person. It's not a one-way street. It depends on that other parent. You know, there are different dynamics that come to it, so there's no one solution. I just think as a man, for me, my resolution is to operate in peace. You know, to operate, to be that consistent strand in my children's life, to show even the ex-wife the consistency. Because a lot of times when you go through divorce, you know, there's the blame game, there's all this stuff that may transpire. And whatever caused the divorce, whatever your portion was, that might be what's emphasized or amplified to that other person. So what I've been doing as far as the co-parenting aspect is just remaining, I can't think of the term right now.
Like a duck on water?
Yeah, just consistent, just consistent.
That sounds good.
That sounds good.
But I know a lot of brothers right now who are on child support, who are who are on child support, who are like the relationship with their child's mother is horrible, and it's a real struggle for them. Like, how have you for real navigated with, and you were married, like some people, their marriage ain't even in the picture. Like, this is a one night thing, or this was something fun, and now they got this situationship with somebody, right? And they got to live life. Like, because that's not my story either, but how are y'all navigating it? Like, how do we help?
I can't speak for the other party. I can only speak for me now. And from that perspective, the way I navigate the challenges, because it is challenging, it is difficult, it is hard, there is some annoyances, there are some disagreements, there are some information that doesn't get passed on. Wait a minute, the kid had a parent, there was a parent-teacher conference, why didn't you tell me? Well, figure it out. You can call the school. It's a lot of variables that come into play with that. The way I approach it and where I've come and find contentment at is, and this sounds kind of harsh, I just kind of ignore the person and I focus on the child. And whatever needs to transpire with the other person, and I'm not saying just in totality, this is the mother. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying for my peace, for my peace to remain consistent in my children's life.
It's needed.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, especially as a man, we have to be consistent, and we have to be that, I heard another gentleman say this one day, he said that we're anchors. We have to be solid, and so regardless of what is fluctuating in the emotional realm with the ex, with the co-parent, I have to remain solid for the children. So that's how I approach my energy, my relationship, if it's a must. And see, I have older children. I have a daughter who's 16. She's so beautiful, and 2 younger boys.
How old are you?
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm 70 in the spirit. No, I'm 38. I'll be 38 here real soon.
So 38 single?
Yes.
He's single. He's single.
Shameless plug.
Wow.
Truck driver. That means he's making that good money.
Wow.
Listen, I listen. Teeth white, everything. Listen, man. So, dude, how has all that you've experienced? I didn't even know that. I didn't know about you experiencing homelessness. I didn't know about you experiencing because that's traumatic.
Yeah.
Like, how do you engage God when you've had to walk through so many hard things that were not your fault? That's good.
Yeah. Great question. So that ties into, I guess, the other half of the story. So I didn't share this earlier, but my father actually passed in 2012. So March 12, 2012. So this Tuesday is gonna make 12 years. I was 21.
Okay.
Crucial years.
Yeah.
Crucial time.
Yeah.
I would say this. Even just leading to today, this was one of the challenging weeks for me. It typically happens, catches me off guard, and then I realize the day, the time, how that works.
Yeah.
So I'm better today, but the last 2 days was really challenging. And I would say, before I say what got me through there, the interesting with my dad, he's always been in my life through all the crazy drama and all the BS and all that stuff he had going on. But he was always consistent with just being there. And even when he was doing the things he was doing, he would always tell me, D, don't do what I'm doing. And it didn't, at first I'm like, that's weird because you're doing this, but you're saying don't do it. But I realized these were habits and struggles that was a part of his life that he just had to overcome. And it took him a while to do that. The last 2 years he was on this earth were the best 2 years of my life. He wasn't on drugs. He was on fire for God. He was in the Word. I would wake up and he'd be up reading the Bible with a coffee. And I never used to see that before. Growing up, that wasn't the case when I wake up. Usually he would be out of it from the night before. And so those 2 years were the first time we was actually on the same page, on the same wave. I was getting involved in ministry, and I was part of this discipleship leadership program where we would just travel and serve the community and develop a relationship with Christ. After he passed, it was just a crazy situation. I realized that he took care of all the bills, he took care of everything. So I finished up that program, and then I just got 2 jobs, and I just helped take care of my mom's, my brother, my sister, and I did that for a long time. And I didn't really embrace the fact that he wasn't here. I would just, I'm a very task-oriented, goal. Let's just get the job done and just focus on what we got to do now. And so for a long time I did that. Recently I started to embrace the fact that he's not here. And I have to, like, if I feel like crying, I just have to let it out. And I learned to just be transparent and vulnerable and find key guys in my life that I can speak to, that I can trust. And now today, fast forward, you know, I don't go just try to do something. I literally just go to the Bible and I try to find answers in this word and how to, you know, one of my favorite scriptures that I learned now is like, you know, Matthew, I think it's 5:4, where he talks about, he comforts those who mourn. Before I went in, I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, I just want to. I naturally like to serve and help, so I was just trying to help people. But
isn't it funny how men, we have a capacity to compartmentalize our pain?
Of course.
Right?
We're taught to.
Right? Like, I'm going to put this over here, I'm going to put this over here, but not realizing, I say this all the time about trauma. Trauma is like having a potato that rolls under the refrigerator out of the bag. You don't know it's there. You're not even thinking about it. You living your life until one day you wake up or walk in that kitchen and you have this putrid smell that you can't figure out where it is, what it is, how it got there. All you're doing is trying to find it.
Right.
That is how trauma impacts the lives of men. It's oftentimes we try to compartmentalize, that's the past, that's not what it is. We bury it within our subconscious. Some research even says that if certain men that have gone through certain things, right, our bodies or our minds won't even allow you to remember it.
Right.
But it still impacts how you show up in the world. It still impacts how you treat your kids, how you treat your mates, how you show up in the world. And it's very real. And oftentimes until we start doing the work, right, it won't, you know, we don't really realize how deeply it's impacted us. And I think one of the things for me that I'm realized that it took me being married for so long. Now I think I've been married for 10 years. And realized, number one, for me, how this impacted my life, I developed high levels of anxiety. Like to the point where I have to use medication now to help manage the anxiety or the anxiousness because of what I had experienced or what I went through. And I think one of the most humbling, or sometimes not even humbling, but I think challenges for me in this space, to have my wife or my friends notice when I haven't taken my medication because I'm just, I think I'm being productive. Everybody else sees
you're a little off your norm.
Off your norm today. And that's what you know. And this, you can't tell me that this is not an impact of a lot of the trauma that many men, and especially urban communities, have experienced. Right, a lot of this stuff is PTSD. It's PTSD, and we're living with it, through it, trying to function as if nothing ever happened.
Wow. Creating a new normal. That's the point. We're trying to. The thing is, trauma sits dormant until it's triggered.
Right.
And that trigger, it comes from any different direction. I am being in the artist community. It's primarily filled with feminine energy. It's a lot of women. It's 70% ladies that support the arts. And then the 30% of the men that come, they're there to support the women who are supporting the arts. So one of the challenges I run into is I'll come in wanting to tell a man's story. That's not always received, because one of the backlash I receive is because you can hear the women say, well, this happened because this man did me so wrong. So then if I come in and say, well, this happened, well, this woman did me so wrong, well, it was your fault. You know, it's not about, and I get triggered instantly because I be ready to, like, hold on, y'all don't know what I've been through. You don't know my story, you don't know my pain, and when that trigger comes, I'll be ready to fire off. Then I just recently I got to the point where I started getting under control. and I put it in my last book, and that book is called Therapy, with HE at the end. It's about men's therapy. It's about his healing. This is how I healed through my writing.
So this is random, and I didn't plan for this. This is not written. You have one of the favorite pieces that you have written. She took it, and the piece is so powerful. Do you mind spitting a little bit of that?
Okay.
You remember? I know I just put you on the spot.
I just a couple lines of it.
All right, couple lines.
I can recall our two bodies twisting, angling from two different positions, one standing empowered in dominance, the other wallowing in reluctant submission, yet still resisting. Wheels refusing to give up like athletic competitors, but these were the wheels of a struggling youth and that of a sexual predator. She took it. She took it. It being my sanity, it being my trust, it being my understanding. But what she did do was initiate my hunger for lust. So the initial time she caused the bust, what I really released was innocence.
Wow. My wife is in the back. Well,
yeah. That works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was powerful.
Thank you.
That's in that book?
Yeah, that's actually, that poem is something that it's the first time I wrote something that I realized I was writing to heal myself. I didn't even recognize like that. That's a real story. It's true testimony. It happened when I was 12. I didn't realize that I was being raped until I became a father. Then I realized I didn't want anything that happened to me to happen to my son. I was like, wait, so that wasn't okay?
Right.
That wasn't, wait, this, because mind you, the men, the structure that's around me was encouraging it, because it's a thing, it's a thing. You young and you getting some? Right. What? Yeah. From a grown woman? What? Yeah, and that's when we taught to compartmentalize, because again, I even went to my mom like, this ain't right? This shouldn't be happening. My mother told me I was lying. So my influences, the nurturing that I should have got from my mom was rejected. The structure and the discipline I should have got from the males that were around me were encouraging it. So I was just taught like, well, what I was feeling, and push that to the side. Just keep on doing it.
Man, if I could speak on that a little bit, the truth is about this narrative, most men who experience various types of sexual abuse at the hands of women don't realize that it's that until almost 20 to 25 years after it's happened. And then it may take another 5 to 10 years to even do anything about it. And oftentimes they don't identify it because men ask themselves, number one, and specifically men who have been, who were introduced to sex prematurely by women, how could this be rape? How could this be molestation when I had an erection? How can this be rape or molestation when I may have ejaculated or my body responded to it? And so I have to first put this out there that because the way the man's body is, our anatomy, like we respond to stimuli, and an erection or ejaculation does not mean it was consented. And as a boy who is developing, coming into manhood, journeying into what it means to be a man, we don't have all the information, the knowledge, the cognitive skill, and ability to consent to something on that level because we don't know how serious sex really is. And so I thank you for mentioning that, and that was so powerful, and thank you for your honesty, because there are men around the world, who have been exposed to sex prematurely by the hands of a man or a woman, sexually abused by a man or a woman. And specifically, if I can just highlight, because of your story about a woman, it goes unseen, it goes unheard, it goes unnoticed, to the point where, socially we have nicknames for them. We call them cougars. We make jokes. Oh, they're robbing the cradle, right? No, they are, and But if it was a little girl with a grown man, we'd be ready to show with shotguns and whatever. But the truth is, there are so many men who are out there and they never say anything, who've experienced this stuff, and they're married, they have kids, they're living life, and they're struggling on the inside because they've experienced this type of trauma and they don't know what to do with it. So they become helicopter fathers, or they start developing different types of what I call self-sabotaging behaviors. They turn to drugs, they turn to sex, they turn to porn, they turn to gambling, turn to so many different things to try to numb the pain. How do we stop numbing our pain and begin the journey to wholeness?
I think it's one of those things where you have to desire the destination. You have to want wholeness. And some people are not in the position to even be aware. And I think that's why your community is important, because you really have to make like real assessments about where you are and where you're going and how to get from that point to the next point. And I think it's the Bible says examine yourselves. And I think we have to take that into account, especially for those of us who are, we're all aging, we're all growing up. And the older you get, you would assume you're becoming wiser. And so what I've done in my life a lot of times is I'm really reflecting and sitting with myself. The benefits about being on the road is I have a lot of time to myself. The road, my mind is going just as fast as those wheels are turning. And I'm thinking and I'm assessing and I'm reflecting and I'm thinking about my actions. And so for me personally, the assessment of my life, of where I've been, where I'm at, and where I believe God is taking me is a crucial point at this stage in my life. There's statistics out about the length of life that African American or minorities live. I'm like, okay, I don't have a lot of time to play around with this. I don't have a lot of time to sit with trauma and let it fester. I have to assess myself and see how can I progress in a timely fashion to get to where I believe God wants me to go.
Yeah. I have a saying, healing is the journey, wholeness is the destination. Y'all know it. Yes. Come on, man. Yes, healing is the journey, wholeness is the destination. And we must journey to wholeness one healing step at a time. I want to say thank you guys to you, for y'all brothers being brave, being courageous, and sitting on this couch with me, in these chairs with me today to talk about life. Because what I'm taking from this is that becoming a godly man is not always pretty. It's not always easy.
Most times it's not.
It means being able, it takes courage. That's the word I'm looking for. It takes courage. It takes courage to believe like a man, because the Bible, one of my favorite scriptures is that it says, in my weaknesses, his strength is perfected. Yeah. The essence or the strength of who I am as a man is not dependent upon my strength, my ability, but it comes from my vulnerability and admitting and facing my weaknesses and my areas of concern, but to realize that in those weaknesses or in those areas of challenge or hurt and pain, that is where I can experience a supernatural strength that can help me journey. One of the greatest revelations of my life, fam, is that he is the God that walks with me. Like he is another part of my favorite scriptures is he is an ever-present help in the time of trouble, right? Like the Bible says, as long as we are in this world, our days are going to be full of trouble, right? It is. It just is what it is. But here's the thing. We have a God who says, I'll never leave you. I won't forsake you. Yeah. I won't abandon you. Regardless of who leaves, what happens, what you may have gotten yourself into, or what other people may have put you in. Regardless, he says, I will never leave you, neither will I forsake you. And life becomes more palatable when you realize that whatever I have to walk through, I'm not walking by myself.
And it's choosing to believe that. I think that's the biggest thing with what you're saying, because a lot of times we know these scriptures or we know these things are true, but the biggest thing is just submitting myself to that and be like, God, I know in my mind this doesn't make sense, or I have these emotions that are coming up. Despite all that, I'm just gonna choose to believe this, and my mind will catch up later to what these things are telling me, because I've already said I'm gonna commit my life to these teachings and to these biblical principles, even though I have these experiences or what my father used to be, or now he's not here. That's not where God is at.
Yeah.
Even though he is my father, I have to just like fully submit to it, despite how I feel, and the rest will just catch up later.
And let me say this to every brother out there. Faith is not faith sometimes until it's all that you have. And sometimes you don't know how strong it is until you have nothing else to stand on.
Yeah.
And when you are at that bottom, and maybe you're at rock bottom, maybe you're beyond rock bottom, I want to encourage you that no matter how dark it is, he's still the lily in the valley. That he's still the bright and morning star, that he is that guide that can lead you to your journey. He will be a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path. When you don't know where to go, what to do, how to do it, when you don't, because the truth is, we don't have the answers, right? We don't have the answers, but he does.
Yeah.
But he does. And so submitting yourself, realizing, yo, God, I don't know how to do this. I'm hurting, I'm broken, and I need your help. Thank y'all, man. Y'all are so amazing.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm looking forward to rocking with y'all until the wheels fall off.
Yes, sir.
All right?
Same here.
All right, and maybe you can fix the tires after they fall off, man. All right?
Great.
All right. Love y'all, man.